Hello, welcome to another First Chapter Friday. As I explained in our last video that I made, we're going to include a bunch of preview information, and then I will do my First Chapter Friday, and then there will be in my outro more information about what happens next, and maybe a little bit more calling back to my intro of some of the things that you can understand about the book before you read, some things you can do as you read. And I hope you enjoyed this. I have the book H2O. I have seen some covers that it's called The Rain. It's by Virginia Bergin. Okay, now one of the things that drew me to this book was absolutely the cover. It has that kind of, see how 3D? It has holes going through the cover, and there's something beneath it that you will want to know if you're at all curious, like I am. And this is what it is. It's a drop of water, and the words that make up that drop, that's a style of poetry that some people will use, and you just make a shape of something that the poem is about. That drop of water is from one of the chapters further on, and it's about how the main character is very tender-hearted and she wants to help people, but some people can't be helped. So H2O, you'll find out from reading the book jacket, and here and in here. It's an apocalyptic story that is supposed to be based on science and not some sort of, fantasy thing. Kind of similar to the Danish TV series called The Rain that you can see on Netflix. There's something wrong with this rain that if you get even a drop on you, you are infected, you die. Okay? Really toxic. And then the story is, how do you survive in a world where, in this situation, 27% of the population survives after the rain has wiped the majority of people out before they understood what was happening, and how are all the different ways that you can come in contact with water, and how we need water, and what types of things are going to happen when there's a reduced amount of water. Okay, so our main character is Ruby, and it is almost a journal because it's all being told in first person. You will be able to make comparisons to books like Alone, which is a book that is all told as a journal in poetry, in verse. And it has similarities to 96 Miles because she does wind up making many trips. I also felt like there were similarities to The Stand. So all of those books I've just mentioned, I already have done First Chapter Fridays for, or I've done some talks on them. I'd say that, nowadays 12-year-olds would be okay with it. The main character does this adorable thing where she doesn't swear because her mother doesn't like her swearing. And the language that people are using, which is definitely naughty, is removed, and she puts instead a typed butterfly in the image. In the second book, there's a different image that she puts in there. And so there's no bad language. There are definitely violent and intense situations throughout, but definitely not worse than Hunger Games. So if you're 12 and your folks let you read that, Hunger Games, you're totally fine with this. A great starter for your paragraph or for your short story about what would you do if you were in an environment where suddenly the rain is completely toxic. Where would you go? Who would you want to be with? What would be the important things that you would want to grab first if you had to travel? Perhaps you could do some Google Maps and design a path of where our main character goes, and put some imagery with it for each pit stop that she makes, and maybe find some videos about the culture of England about 10 years ago. She does have cell phones in this story, so it is supposed to be a modern take. And then by doing that, creating the Google map as she travels through this book, you would understand some of her cultural references. You would feel like you could empathize with her better if you're kind of like traveling with her by creating Google Maps. And then a final idea that you might try is making your own, making your own concrete poetry. And you can make it after you've read it, a certain chapter, if your teacher asks you to do that, or you could just do it for your own journaling. And literally all you have to do is just pick something meaningful and then make a shape out of that. If this was a regular story, like the kind you'd read for fun, it would have such a great beginning. Probably they'd want to make it into a movie. It'd be that good. It would start in mission control, or maybe deep in space where a massive hunk of rock, an asteroid, is whizzing through the stars on a collision course with the planet Earth. We cut to Earth. All over the world, everyone is terrified. They crowd around their TVs, weeping and praying. Probably there's also a lot of hugging and kissing and hand-holding, that kind of thing. Lots of deep and meaningful conversations, but not too many. We don't want to spoil the action. The final countdown starts, and back in mission control, some old guy in a uniform stands aside to let some hot young dude, a misunderstood rebel genius who's masterminded the whole operation, press the button. His girlfriend's there, or maybe she's at home, watching on TV and whispering, "I love you, Brad," as he launches the super rocket that's Earth's only hope. Now all everyone can do is wait and hope and pray. You'll have to speed up the next part. Apparently in real life, it took hours and hours, days, for the missile to reach the asteroid. In the movie of the book, it'd just take long enough time to let the buff dude and his girl find each other, so they could be kissing when, kaboom! The asteroid is blown to smithereens. It looks really pretty too, a shimmering starburst in the sky. Everyone on Earth goes ooh and ah and does some more hugging and kissing. The buff dude has saved the planet. The hot guy triumphant. Hurrah! See? What a great story. Except, as I said, this is just the beginning. And in any case, I was too young to remember the asteroid and all that. Me and my friends, we'd seen the stuff about it on internet, and honestly, it was boring. Simon, my stepdad, heard me say that once, and he went crazy. "Are you telling me?" he said. "Are you telling me?" Here we go. You just knew when he repeated stuff like that, he was going to repeat a whole lot of other stuff. On and on and on, and that you find the near destruction of the planet Earth on which you live boring? I have to say, when he got on his high horse like that, I couldn't help it. I saddled up on my own. Yeehaw! Well, yeah, I said. I was telling the truth. I hate when you get into trouble for stuff like that, for just saying what's true. It's like they, the parental types, and about 99.911% of all known teachers, want you to lie about what you think. You get into trouble for lying about everything else, who you were with, what you were doing, whether you had done your homework or not. But they don't care when you lie about what you think. They actually want you to do it. It's called agreeing with them, and that's what they want. All the time, even if they're totally wrong. Unbelievable. Did you hear that, Becky? Are you listening to this? That was the other thing he did. He tried to drag my mom into everything. "Simon," she said, "let it go. She's just trying to irritate you." The truth about that was half the time I didn't know myself whether I was trying to irritate him. I couldn't help myself. He annoyed me. My mom said we were two peas in a pod, which made me really angry because he wasn't even my dad. Like I would ever share a pod with Simon. Being forced to share a house was bad enough. "I'm not," I said. "It is boring. Something really bad nearly happened. It's like, so what? There's a lot of really bad things that are actually really happening." "Ruby," said Simon, borderline total rage out, "what you are failing to understand is that—" I forgot what else he said. What it was I was failing to understand. Same old, I expect, with the same old results. He'd get madder and madder, I'd get madder and madder, and my mom would get drowned out, or else we'd both end up going after her. It probably ended up with me getting grounded. That happened a lot. Or being told to go and clean my room, or do dishes even though we had a dishwasher, or clean out the stupid guinea pig's cage. The thing is, I would give just about anything to be back there in the kitchen, having that fight. I would just agree with him or say sorry or something. But there will never be another argument in the kitchen. There will never be another argument anywhere in this house. My name is Ruby Morse, and this is my story. If you are reading it, you are very, very lucky to be alive, right? Chapter 1. There's really no point going on about how things used to be. For one, I can't stand to think about it, even though I do a lot. And it makes me want to throw up with sadness. For two, it's kinda doesn't matter, does it? It's over. And for three, I'm not writing this because how things used to be. I'm writing this because of what happened. So I'll start right there. This is what happened. I was sitting in a hot tub in my underwear, kissing Casper McCloud. Ha! That also sounds like a great beginning. Maybe from some kind of Kiss Fest romance, or maybe Casper would turn out to be the sexy vampire or something. But the truth is, and this is the one thing I will do for sure, I will try to tell the truth, even if it hurts me to say it. Even if it shocks you to hear it. And I doubt it will, because you're reading this. You've probably already had gazillions of shocks already. The truth is, it wouldn't be right to pretend that kissing in a hot tub was the kind of thing I usually did on a Saturday, because it wasn't. It so wasn't. Don't get me wrong. I'd kissed boys before, too. I'd been to parties before. Like, since I was 5 years old or something. I'd even sat in that hot tub in my underwear before with Lee. That's Lee as in Leonie, my best friend. But that night, that party, it was the best, the most amazing, scarily amazing time I'd ever had in my life up until that point. Not too difficult. That night, that one glorious, hot Saturday night, I was becoming a new me. One who was going to have a boyfriend named Casper and do stuff like kiss in hot tubs at wild parties all the time. Yes, from the nagging jaws of the they, I was about to snatch complete amazing greatness and total brilliance. And a boyfriend. What can I say? It happened. It really happened. Zach, who lived in this massively cool, rambling old farmhouse, and whose parents were so laid back you could basically do whatever you liked, pulled the speakers outside the barn where we, that's me and all my lovely friends, exception to be named shortly, had been hanging out drinking lethal cider punch. And a bunch of us stripped down to our underwear and climbed into their hot tub. We sort of danced where we sat, doing a little so slick, yeah, check it, mini arm moves. It was totally hilarious, but it was also totally cramped until people started getting out again, moaning that the hot tub was too hot. It was like some dreadful slow motion countdown. With every person that got out, the water in the tub got stiller and stiller. I kept wishing it was one of those jacuzzi tubs with bubbles, but it wasn't. Unless you kept trailing your hands around on the surface, you could see everything. So I sat there, casually fanning my hands around, because across that pool of steaming water sat Casper Swoon McCloud. And in between us sat Saskia, who wasn't fanning her hands about at all. I do want to say that even before that night, I wasn't really sure how much I actually liked Saskia. Not that I really knew her. She just started hanging out with us lately. Even more lately than Casper, who had transferred to our school from an artsy hippie school. And that was cool and wild and was in a band. And I'd once told Simon and my mom I was babysitting with Lee so I could go see Casper's band playing at a bar. And it was there, while Casper was on stage at the George, doing his guitar thing, that he looked up and looked at me. And I looked at him and Casper boom. Part 1. I realized I was in love with Casper McCloud. And this is too much information, isn't it? This is exactly what I said I wouldn't do, which is going on about how things were. I can't stand it. I'll shut up. Back in the hot tub, Lee came to my rescue, or tried to. She came up and asked Saskia where the gin had gone. I told you that punch was lethal. And Saskia said she didn't know. And Lee said she thought she'd seen her with it. And Saskia said that she hadn't seen it. And Lee said maybe she should just come and help her look for it. And Saskia, who so knew all along what Lee was trying to do, sighed this enormous bored sigh, stood up and climbed out of the tub with her chest practically in Casper's face, and then turned to me and said, "Don't do anything I wouldn't do." And then there really was nothing but a steaming hot tub of water between me and Casper McCloud. I was so shy. I nearly died of shyness. Also, I was slightly worried that I was going to cook to death or perish from an exploding bladder because I really did need to go pee. I tried not to think about that, and it wasn't difficult because I was in a state of pre-kiss terror. For sure, any second now, there was going to be a kiss. There had to be a kiss. "Hey, Ruby baby," said Casper. That's what he called me, Ruby baby. From the lips of anyone other than a divine being, it would have sounded cringe-making and vomit-worthy. From the lips of Casper McCloud, it was utterly thrilling, as if an electric-lipped angel was kissing your soul. You know, hot and crackly. "Hey, Casper," I said, crackling. "Why don't you swim over here and keep me company?" he said. I fixed him with this sultry model stare, deadpan but pouty, that I'd been practicing at home. "Well, why don't you come swim on over here?" I said. It was the pre-kiss terror that made me say that. Basically, I would have swum the Atlantic to get to him. Genius Ruby. All I'd done was prolong the agony. Slowly and sexily, we both scooted toward each other. Actually, I'm not sure you can scoot slowly and sexily, but that's what it felt like. Also, it felt like it took an eternity, when really it was probably about 10 seconds or something. I looked into his eyes. Then I had to look away because it was just too intense. I could see all my friends dancing and messing around like idiots, and behind them this gorgeous red sunset blazing in the sky. If I looked the other way, I would have seen something else. I would have seen clouds gobbling up the night, Maybe I would have even seen the clouds reflected in Casper's eyes. But when I got a grip enough to stare into them again, I wasn't there to admire the view. Boom! I practically headbutted him as my lips mashed into his. His lips sort of opened a little, and I kind of pushed my tongue into his mouth. I thought that's what you're supposed to do, to show how passionate you felt or something. Like I said, I'd kissed boys before, and that's what we'd done. It'd been fairly disgusting. Kissing Casper like that wasn't disgusting. It was scary, and it felt all wrong until, I don't know, it just changed. One minute it was tongue-on-tongue combat, and then the next minute, if this was my blockbuster movie, we would pause here. It would be worth a whole scene all by itself, that kiss. We would linger on it for as long as possible, that kiss. Those kisses. Where does one kiss end and one begin? We just kind of melted into each other. And I know that's kind of a stupid thing to say in cheesy romances, but we did. That's what happened. One minute I was my own clumsy me, being and freaked out, and I could feel this divine Casper being. He was freaking out too. This divine Casper being's tongue, and the next minute, I don't know, it was total Casper boom, part 2. We didn't hear the yelling. Fingers dug into my arm. My lips disconnected from Casper's. I turned in. Get out! Zach's dad shouted into my face, hauling me from the tub. And that is when it all began. Okay, for some of you that are cringing because, oh my gosh, I use the word kissing and sex and don't worry, the rest of the book's not like that. I mean, that was in the before. The after, you just got to be really careful about who you trust. All right, before I launch into the rest of the story, I want to give you a really good setting. I took this little video on the day that I finished reading the book, and I'd gone shopping, and it was not that late at night. And I came out of the store, and this is what I saw. That is frankly ominous. Now we're ready to talk about H2O. She is far away from her house. Somehow she needs to get home and find out what's going on with her family. You'll find out right away what happens to all these friends and to Casper. You will learn the things that are important to her and the people who are important to her and how she prioritizes things. And those are just like I had suggested at the beginning in the intro. Those are things that you might consider if you do a creative writing using this as a prompt. And one of the things that she does is go to the library. I loved that because if the world has mostly disappeared, only 27% remain, then a lot of things aren't working. And I'm sure you can use your imagination before you read the rest of the book and figure out that. But the library is there. Books are there. And the things that she looked up were how to take care of cars. Why would she do that? She looked up maps. She looked up stuff like, how does Wi-Fi work? But she didn't do things that I would have done. So I'm very curious. That could be a second writing assignment. If you went to a library for knowledge, what would be the important things you would try to learn from books? And how would that help you in this type of an apocalypse? Okay, more things that you could do. Think about, why is this story best told in first person? And what would be different about it if it were told in third? You could talk about what her character is like. At the beginning of the book is she said she was shy, and the things that were important to her at the beginning of the book. maybe they're more superficial. And as her character arc, continues through the book, where does she end up? Does she have a change in some of the things that are important to her at the beginning? Yes, of course she will. But what are those things going to be? Pay attention to them. How does the apocalypse change her? And at the end of the book, is she someone that you'd rather be a friend with and have on your team? Or did you like her better the way she was at the beginning? All right, so that's all I have for you today. The story was riveting. I loved how the author didn't explain what the dangerous thing is about the rain and how does rain infiltrate all of life, and it was kind of COVID-like, where it's like, oh, you got to put on gloves. Oh, but if you put on gloves and you touch something and then you touch something else with the gloves, have you now made that thing contagious? So there was a lot of, learning about that, learning about the characters and all the places she went to, and how humanity is just very different in situations that are stressful. And then, I'm pretty sure you're going to be like me and want to go on to that second book, Storm, as soon as you finish the first. And hopefully you will. And I'll just tell you that there is some humongous revelations in the sequel. And that's it. It's a duology. Okay. Well, thank you for listening. And I really hope that you try out this book. I think you'll be quite pleased. Take care now.